This is a short story from Bram Stoker called Dracula's Guest. This short story was published in 1914 after Stoker's death. I'll just give a short summary to start. It starts out with the narrative being driven by Johann in a carriage where he has just visited Herr Delbrück in Munich. After the horses hear a sound, the driver tries to calm them down and start talking about there potentially being wolves. This conversation leads on to another conversation about an unholy village, which has been left for centuries. He then tells a story about how dead people rose from their graves as zombies and killed other people. The narrator then lets Johann go back to Herr Delbrück as the narrator thinks he can walk by himself and sees that Johann is quite scared and afraid. It was a special night that night for them. It was Walpurgis night, which is the night the devil is abroad and the dead come back to life. The narrator is then attacked by a wolf by the tombs of the abandoned village, where he is then, the wolf doesn't eat him, but he is then saved by a troop of horsemen. When he comes back to Herr Delbrück, he explains the reason. He doesn't understand the reason for sending such a search party after him, but Delbrück himself then explains that it was because of a telegram that he got from Dracula, that insisted that he would send out a search party. In the end, the narrative feels like he's under some mysterious protection. The setting is set in Munich in, I think, about the 1900s. And of course, the city he visits is a bit older because it has been abandoned for centuries. So it gives like a feeling of there not being this 1900 atmosphere, but instead this scary and older atmosphere. And it is also quite far in the evening, and the atmosphere seems quite unnerving, as we can see here on line 55. There was something weird and uncanny about the whole night, that it gave me a turn and made me feel quite faint. This was Walpurgis night. And yeah, that's just how we see that it's all a bit unnerving. The main themes in the text are kind of like this mystique, especially because everything is so mysterious. He asks a lot of questions and he's very curious about it all, the narrator. So there's all of these things and these unanswered questions we have after, especially the wolf attacks him but doesn't eat him and instead yelps for until the troops of horsemen get there. There's also this horror theme to it, as he walks in this abandoned village by himself, and and there's this talk about zombies and how scary it might be, and then he gets attacked. There are some different characters. At first we have the narrator, who is very curious, as we can see here by all the greens. He's, tell me, I said, about this place where the roads leads, and then a conversation where he just keeps on asking questions. And again, he, after leaving the carriage with Johann, he explores the tomb and the abandoned village because he's that curious. It even says here, my curiosity was piqued on line 37. He's also a kind person, and caring, especially for Johann, because as we see here in line 45, standing back, I said, you are afraid, Johann, you are afraid, go home, I shall return alone, the walk will do me good. As not only just letting Johann go home, but also reassuring him that he himself will be just fine and Johann has nothing to worry about. And then, funny enough, even after he's been attacked by a wolf, here on line 68, he seems quite calm, like not panicking. Of course, he gets like a rush, and it's, as we can see here, a vast stillness enveloped me, as though all the world were asleep or dead, only broken by the low panting as of some animal close to me. I felt a warm rasping at my throat. Then came a consciousness of awful truth, which chilled me to the heart and sent the blood surging up through my brain. Maybe if he had panicked more, he would try to struggle and get off of the wolf's grip, but he is calm. Yeah. We then have Johan, and especially as we see here, he's very afraid, very scared. As we can see on all the red marks. He was pale and said, "It sounds like a wolf, but yet there are no wolves here." And he mumbled a prayer before he answered, "It is unholy." He was evidently afraid to speak the last words. And then, as we also see between these two lines, that he actually leaves the narrator alone. We then also see that Johan is quite knowledgeable, especially with all these legends and what it is. And as first on line 25 we see with the wolves, he answers if there is any wolves near the city. Long, he answered, in the spring and summer, but with the snow the wolves have been here not so long. And then again, when they talk about the legend, first he's answered a bit of questions, and then he comes, whereupon he burst into a long story. Roughly I gathered that long ago, hundreds of years, men had died there and been buried in their graves. Then goes on to tell the entire story. We then have Herr Delbruck, who we can see he's also caring, but that's the only thing we really get about him. He is he's scared that they won't come home before nighttime, or Johan won't come home. And then again, when the narrator comes back to Herr Delbruck, it says here on line 100, Herr Delbruck rushed so quickly down the steps to meet me that it was apparent he had been watching within. Taking me by both hands, he solicitously let me in. So we can see there are different traits of the genre, like this dark past, the village, and how it's of course a couple centuries back from the 1900s. And there's talk about zombies and Dracula, who's both dead and living at the same time. And again, with the zombies, they are from these graves, they come from underground, not on the same level as normal people. And it even says somewhere that he has this uncanny feeling that he just can't seem to shake. And the wolf seems incomplete in the story, as we readers didn't really find out why it didn't eat the narrator and why it went into the tomb. And as well, we couldn't really understand what the letter from Dracula meant and how he was involved in him being saved. We can then, like in perspective 8, this to Edgar Allan's Poe's The Telltale Heart. So even though they're different kind of horror stories, where The Telltale Heart has a big focus on the psychological side of the horror, and Dracula's Guest focus more on the scary and mysterious setting, both of them are not clear about what is happening. In The Telltale Heart, you have to conclude it yourself that it is his own heart that he hears all this time. Whereas in here we are left, if in Dracula's Guest we are left with some unanswered question about both the wolf and Dracula's part in all of this.